Good morning, folks. It's Josh here. Hope you're doing well. A little while since I recorded the video, and rather than write another chapter of War and Peace for the five horses today, in section 2 that I've thrown one of my tipping points at, I thought I would try and rattle through them as quickly as I can and try and explain why I've picked them. There's some notes horses which are generally, well, their starting point is they have to exist well, they generally exist on this page somewhere, having hit some of my stats qualifiers. Me using those as starting points, whether they hit a qualifier in section 1 or some other stats from the test zone or anything else maybe in section 4. And there's a couple of kind of festival tips, which I suppose more are kind of big handicap chases and handicap hurdles at festivals or 2-day, 3-day meetings, of which we've had Cheltenham this week, which didn't go too well on many fronts. And we've got Ayres 2-day kind of festival, Scottish National Festival here. So with that in mind, let's crack on. Mellow Ben, well, he hit some of my stats, obviously, in section 1, and he was a decent price. What did I want to say about him? As always, I'm generally trying to focus on unexposed horses. He's only had 5 hurdle runs in his life. He's only had 2 handicap hurdle runs in his life. The last day he showed a bit more. I've watched that video again. He got scrapping and got in a fight for the lead quite a long way out. And in the end, I think that paid a price for those efforts. But that was his kind of best run in a little while. It was also a class 3, so he drops back into a class 4 here. He moves up a couple of furlongs in trips. He's doing 2 things differently there. As always with a kind of unexposed horse, or any horse really, that I'm looking for a reason why they should improve on their recent form. I'm asking myself the question, what are they doing differently? Why should they improve? What is the story, I suppose, of their season to date and their form profile? And with that in mind, I thought the dropping class, the step up in trip, and possibly the better ground, which is a bit of an unknown, but I get a double figure price to find out, may actually see him improve. He didn't look like he had a heavy action, having watched the video the last day. He doesn't seem to hit the ground too hard, so hopefully, fingers crossed, he may actually appreciate this better ground. Noonan's ridden him before. I couldn't quite work out why Cannon was on Tara Bridge, though. He's ridden, is it a she? No, it's a he. He's ridden that horse plenty, and Noonan's ridden this one. And actually, Gordon and Noonan, I have stats littered over my page, are 5 from 21, 9 places in handicap hurdles when teaming up for 6 points profit, the starting price. So there's an added stat there, I suppose. And of course, we know Chris Gordon is in form at the moment. As always, I'm using Gigi's Gold for those of you who aren't familiar, possibly, with the race cards you see in front of you, of which these obviously drop-down stats and various different things are superb. Excuse me. So yes, 4 from 19, 9 places in the last 14 days, all runners, so that's decent enough. I thought they would try and be prominent with him. Like I said, unexposed, should be more to come. At a double figure price, I was happy to take on the favourite. The Nicholas horse may well hack up, the market is suggesting so, but that was a small field, fairly weak, even though it was a class 3. Handicap hurdle over 19 furlongs in heavy. Got to prove a liking for this ground. Small field again. I mean, did actually absolutely hack up and might do so again, but I am never afraid to take on the short price favourite. I did also have a saver on Rebel Collins, who's also a stats pick, but wasn't quite a double figure price, and I did not really want to tip 2 in this. In form, I think the return to better ground, the slight move up in trip, and first time cheap pieces could see this one return to the winner's enclosure based on some okay, decent enough flat form. So I would not put you off a saver on Rebel Collins either. Hopefully, Mellow Ben can beat the lot of them, and if not, Rebel Collins might take the prize and give me a bit of beer money left over. Tara Bridge, I was happy to leave. 10-year-old, been chasing, comes hurdling, better ground, normally does well on a softer surface. Money for the Moor horse would be interesting. There are a few stats qualifiers in this. Maybe my pin has landed on the wrong one, but it's landed on one of them. Let's jump to the 4:45 at Ayr, where I was happy to have a go at Baby Ticker at kind of 20 to 1 and 18 to 1. This race has a funny feel. If I look on the win stats, there are not many proven at the distance here. Something probably will improve for running at the distance, unless it goes to a proven kind of stayer. And on the ground as well is a question for a few. And the class 2, this isn't what you would call the strong class 2 in terms of there are a load of proven class horses in this. Plenty of these have been running in kind of class 3 and class 4 hurdles and have something to prove. So with that in mind, I kind of wanted a big price. Baby Ticker hits my section 1 stats. What should I say first? Willens is in form. That caught the eye, as you can see there. 5 runners in the last 14 days, 2 winners, 3 places. You can see his course record here, the trainer and jockey at the track. The trainer and jockey at the course in the last 5 years, 6 from 28. If I tick on him, Mr. Willens, I can just dig into his handicap form at the course. You can see there 5 from 19. This is the last 5 years, 10 places, all hurdles, all handicaps, sorry. And you can see there all hurdle runners. You could Willens, easy micro, every single hurdler, including non-handicaps. He had Keyboard Gangster going at 16s in a novice hurdle in February. 6 from 22, 11 places, all hurdlers, plus 70 points at starting price. The Betfair SP would be quite a bit bigger. He's had a 50 to 1 winner here before, which we have all backed on the blog. Hartforth, that was the one, qualified on the same stats that Baby Ticker was qualified against in section 1. Having been 25 in the morning and drifted, that was a good day, even for small change on Betfair. So yes, Baby Ticker, what should I say about the horse? She's been very consistent. I'm not, the ground, excuse me, the ground isn't conclusive. I will not say for certainty that she does not handle good. If I have a doubt or it's they have to prove it, I want a price. I get 18 to 1, 20 to 1 here to find out. Of course, I will back many more losers in that price range than winners. But this is a similar kind of thinking which has landed on a few darts and a few biggies recently. What do I want to say? She's been generally consistent. She's been running in races which have produced horses that have gone on to run well since. That run at Haydock was quite good, actually. It was in soft, a class 2. She got outpaced, but she stayed on, and she was the only one, really, outside of the front 2, who was running on at the end. Maybe past beaten horses, but she was doing all of her best work late there. I just thought it was fascinating, this step up in trip. Yes, she's 9. But she has only had 11 hurdle runs in her life. She's clearly had issues. She's only had 7 handicap hurdle runs. She has a pretty good record at the course. Well, she's run here twice and won once. You can see there novice hurdle runs, the odd good run on good to soft. This Sedgefield run, I think we're on. I can't remember. She hit some stats, or it might be another horse, but she was miles clear at this Sedgefield and was going to hack up that day, and that was on good to soft, so I can't really say she can't handle this ground. Her extra stamina in that Ayr 16 furlongs heavy ground has probably won the day there. She's been consistent. She's bumped into one there, I think, on that Ayr race. I just thought 20 to 1, given all of that, the trainer record here, he's in form. She's been running well. She's quite unexposed to as a handicapper. She steps up in trip. She may not stay, or it unlocks further improvement, and at 20 to 1 I was more than happy to have a dart. Is there anyone else that I wanted to mention? Oh yes, Miss Tint, however you say that, for David Pipe. She absolutely hacked. Is it a she or is it he? I assume it's she. Yes. Of course it would be, because it's a mare's handicap hurdle. Be a bit odd if there are any boys lining up in this. Absolutely hacked up at Ludlow, and steps up in trip again. She hits the David Pipe micro angles for this meeting. He doesn't send many handicap hurdlers to this 2-day festival, but they generally do well when he does. She's probably worth a saver at kind of 5 to 1, 11 to 2. That might turn out to be a big price. I'm not quite sure. Obviously, it's a big field. I wouldn't go mad, but that was a very impressive performance the last day. Clearly, she has to react to blinkers again. The ground is a bit different, but you know, she really could be anything. She could have won by half the track the last day. And Tom Skoo takes back over. So that's interesting. So that's that one. What else have I got? Red Alert. This one's a bit of a poke in the 7:15 at Bath. I think we will have an idea before the race whether or not we're going to get a run for our money. If he drifts markedly from 16s, I may not be too hopeful. But I suppose one of the main things which jumped out at me when I was looking at this, Tony Carroll has run 8 horses in the last 2 weeks, 5 have won. A further horses placed, so only 2 have finished unplaced. That continues a kind of decent 30 days in general, where half of his runners have hit the frame. That alone, I suppose, because he hit my starting stats in section 1 and he was 16-1, already had me interested. Then I'm trying to look to see if the horse is unexposed enough. He's had 8 runs on turf. He's placed on half of them. He's only had 4 runs in handicaps on turf. This is his second run for the yard. His run after 70 days ago was his first run since October. There's reason to believe he may come on for it. He's got some consistent form and he's got form of the course. It's likely that he might, fingers crossed, improve for better ground as well. This 5.5 furlongs here in a big field, strong pace might actually be ideal because he's been running on over kind of flat, stiff 5 furlongs, or flat 5 furlongs, I should say, and doing his best work late. He has won over 6 furlongs. He might want a good pace to aim at. He might be drawn a bit wider than ideal, but he can get out. If I look at the pace here, there are not too many scorchers on the turf, not too many front runners. And I thought they might, Mr. Downing might be able to get him out and get him prominent, hopefully. He might get stuck wide as they hit that bend at Bath, and that might be that. But at 16-1, like I said, is firing a dart at a price for a few logical reasons. He's also top 3 rated on the GG Speed, which isn't too bad either. That's always a good sign, especially in sprints kind of being up there. And those over kind of 5 furlongs top rated GG Speed have a good record, so maybe Jeff Potts might be of interest, but he's even drawn even wider. There's 2 further stats. Mr. Saunders qualifies in section 1. He doesn't have a great record as a trainer. Let me just look at this and show you on turf with his handicappers after 60 days or more off the track. He's 0 from 42 in the last 5 years, only 4 have placed. That made me anti-tipping them. Oddly enough, he's done okay with his all-weather runners, so he clearly can get them fit at home. So that's a bit odd and a bit of an anomaly. Maybe he's changing trainer methods. Maybe it's just a case of him deciding if he wants to bring a horse along slowly or rev them up for early on in the season on the turf. I wouldn't fall off my seat if either of those won. I wouldn't necessarily put you off a small tickles at kind of double-figure prices, but neither has a record of winning after a break either, and I would think they might both need it. But it's one of those kind of races, and it's this stage in the season where anything can really happen. So that's the 3 there. I'm ticking around to 13 minutes. Let me dive on to the 5:15 at Ayr, of which I wanted to have a go. You will see that there are some stats qualifiers against my little trends there. I'll go on to them in a moment. Bob Marler 7s, he was 6s. He was a single figure price and come off after a break, and Alan King isn't in form. So I was happy to leave. Pretty much any of those 3 win around 7-1. I can live with it. These 2 are massive prices. Clearly I'll be a bit sick if one of those wins, but I thought their form looked fairly weak. And although Jack Devine's unexposed, I couldn't quite bring myself to tip them. But we've seen the record of horses on my stats shortlists, including at Cheltenham this week. I say shortlists. He falls down on that 10th or lower in weight stat as well, although that's one of those dodgy ones. Anyway, I've gone for King of Fashion, which I thought was interesting at 10-1. This caught the eye. Trainer and jockey in the last month are 4 from 10, 6 places with all runners, 6 from 2. They had a horse hack up at Cheltenham. What caught the eye here is Mark's come down He's pretty unexposed in handicap hurdles, as you can see. This is his third run for Kerry Lee. He's got form at Ayr. He's got form at this meeting in the novice hurdle over 3 miles, nearly winning there, coming a close second. I thought it was fascinating in that context that Lee is now sending him up here. It suggests this has been a target. Given that also, so he ran okay in November, again back here, that was for Ian Duncan's first run after a break. The horse may improve for slightly better ground, although, well, yes, given that run there, I can't say that he won't handle decent ground. What was interesting is he ran at Sandown there where he was pulled up. Clearly something went amiss. He then had a wind up and then ran less than, well, what was he, 6 weeks after or so that wind up, if not 7 weeks, and was a bit keen, a bit fresh. Because he had the wind up after this Sandown run, he would have missed a fair bit of work. He would have had a few quiet days after the operation. I suspect he wasn't fully tuned up for this Bangor run. That's what I'm hoping. Headway approaching 4 out, chase leaders 3 out, and then weakened. He was also a bit keen, I think, probably a bit too fresh. Chapel Style did hammer him that day. There's clearly a bit of turnaround on the weights front. That run is only explained, and the form will only be reversed if he actually wasn't 100% fit there, and this has been the target, and he'll come on for it, and he could be one to improve for his second run after a wind up. He's well handicapped enough. He's got another £5 off his back. I just thought it was interesting at a double figure price. He's near the top of the weights. Those in the kind of top 10 of the weights have the best record in this race, and I thought he looked interesting. I have gone for a nibble at kind of 12 to 1 or 14 to 1. It is a bit of a poke on Robin Royale. Seamus Mullins, if I've got the stats still up here, have I got them still here? Yes. So this is Mr. Mullins. Handicap hurdles in his career, running after 365 days or more off. This one's had 364, 3 from 25, 8 places. He can ready them after a monster break. He's had the odd horse run okay in recent runs. And at a double figure price, I was willing to kind of forgive him. He's only sent 5 horses to the track in 5 years. 1 has won, 4 have placed. So, you know, he doesn't come north to Scotland that often. The horse has had a wind up. And he hacked up in a Chepstow 24 furlong, so he stays. Good ground isn't a problem. And he ran at this Ayr meeting last. Beer Goggles, decent enough horse. Soon no extra there. Cheek pieces are off. He's had a wind up. He's very unexposed and lightly raced. I just thought he looked an interesting one at a double figure price. I couldn't really make a case for myself or any of the others here. Bob Marler is on the stats shortlist and is the one that is most interesting because he's unexposed. He is very wayward. He has a few issues in the head, I think. If he puts it all together, he could take this, and he is the one I probably fear most off that stats trends shortlist. If you watch that race at last at Wetherby, Johnson was very careful not to touch him with a whip. He pulled himself up between the second and last flights. He had to be cajoled. Then the other horse came alongside him and he found a bit more again. He won easily in the end off a slow pace. He just kept galloping. This will be different, surrounded by horses. There's a question mark over his temperament and his head. And what goes on in his head. In that context, I think I wanted 12 to 1 or bigger, if I'm honest. And I didn't want to dive in with a full tipping point at 7s. I was happy to leave everything else. Cloth Cap has stamina to prove, 84 days off. John Joseph started to go a bit better. I wouldn't fall off my seat if he won. He may improve for the step up, was very poor when last seen, but maybe that's a ground thing. He's unexposed, top 10 in the weights, not impossible. Yeah, so that one's of interest. I'm just trying to work out 5 or 6 year old. Oh yeah, top 3 last time out, so that's why he isn't on the stats shortlist. And neither ones I've picked. Well, Robin Royal was top 3 last time out. Anyway, the 2 biggies on the trends shortlist that would leave me a bit sick. Strong Economy, 25s, hasn't really done much. Looks a very heavy ground horse. Been chasing. you know, has stamina to prove, has class to prove. I thought there were a few too many questions, though. He's a massive price and he hits the trends. And for some of you, that would just be enough to have a go. This one's thoroughly unexposed, but hasn't really done much. And he was expected to the last day at 5 to 4 and got stuffed. Visor comes out. I doubt that's because they want him to improve his looks aesthetically. It will be because they think he needs it and his maybe wayward tendencies mentally. Dobbin has an okay record with first starters on handicap hurdle debut. I'd have thought the market may be a guide. He could be useless. Clearly, he could be anything. But I've made a judgment that I'm happy to leave him. So I tick around the 20 minutes. I think that's the lot for the tips and those 5, and I've probably gone on long enough, so hopefully some of you have found those thoughts useful. All 5 may fall out the back of the TV. I have been on a very good run. I am due a few losers. Do read that note that I put on the note sources on yesterday's post on the 19th in red. Do take your time to read through that. And if you haven't followed these before, start off very, very small, have an adequate bank, and I will try and build up over time. Certainly the flats note sources, well, if all of them, arguably, given how they've gone, are still kind of in a test trial phase in my head, because I haven't been going long enough to prove to myself or to you that I can consistently make profits over time with that approach, although we had a very good back end of last year when I started with it. So that's that. Enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy your weekend, and until the next time, this is Josh saying bye for now.